down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
You know, it crosses my brain every time I see that Savvy Landlord podcast pop up. I'm like, yeah, got to hear it. I want to know what he's up to now.
Oh, right on.
It's awesome.
Cool.
So yeah, I think let's start with the beginnings. Let's talk about it. So people know who you are.
All right. So I was born in 1973. So you could do the little math. My birthday's coming up. I'll be 43. I do have goals and dreams, but I started out. My mother had my brother. He's 6 years older than me. And my dad, when I was born, my dad left. A lot of it was my brother had some behavioral issues. He was upset that all the attention was towards me. And so my dad just left and abandoned us. And my brother was angry with me because I was, got all the attention. Though obviously I was an infant mother effer, and it's so cool. It's like my brother and I have been estranged for all these years. And this Sunday, yesterday, I hung out with him.
Wow.
And we raced RC cars. And it was something that was been his passion. Anyway, so my dad left. We lived in one-bedroom apartments. My mom lived in the living room. I could never have friends. I fought all the time. I was angry at my dad. And so then my dream was people to like me. And I got kicked out of school. And we just moved around every 4 years, and it just sucked because my mom had to work all the time, and I was trapped at this house, and I couldn't have friends over because my mom lived in the living room. So I didn't understand. I was just angry at her. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? But I saw that she sacrificed, and I didn't understand until now, at being an adult and what she's done for me. But it motivated me, and the reality was I don't want to be my mom. I didn't want to be broke all the time. We didn't have Christmas. And I know it's cool, to be wealthy now and never work again. But I can understand. I hope that I can encourage people that you can do it, right? Because I was just like, that was my drive. How did I get here this morning? Why am I doing this podcast? It doesn't yield. But I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted to not be poor, and I for sure did not want to live in an apartment. So that was my only dream. And then during that process, I wanted to own a business. And so then from there, I went. They lied to me in school. They were like, "You're never going to amount to anything. You're going to be a woodworker." I hate labor. I hate wood. And then from there, I mean, seriously, if I smell the wood burning, it bothers me. It's like Psycho, because it reminds me of this school, and I got shipped off to a special school in New Jersey because in New Jersey you have to go to school. You can't, in Oklahoma, you can say you're homeschooled and you can be emancipated adult. In Oklahoma, in New Jersey and the East Coast, my mom can go to jail if I don't go to school. Right. So they shipped me to a special school, because I was a disruptive child. And so they were like, and I was fighting all the time. I was angry. And they're like, you need to learn a trade. You need to be a woodworker. And I'd have these wood classes. And I'm like a psycho kind of perfectionist in my mind. I can't cut wood. I don't know how to measure correctly. It doesn't fit. Like the damn box doesn't make a box. And so I was like, man. And then they said, which infuriates me, you're never going to go to college. And so I just wanted to prove people wrong. I wanted to be wealthy. I didn't want to live in an apartment. And I wanted to go to college. So when I finally got to college, through some circumstances, it was a joke. I was like, wow, this is it? You just memorize stuff and show up?
Right.
That crushed me because that was my goal, to prove everybody wrong that, I can go to college. And, I got the learning disability written on me. And then in high school, I got it off. I passed a bunch of tests because I was so far behind because I was getting kicked out all the time. And so then I came to know Christ in July of the summer, and my youth minister, she's like, "Hey, you need to go to OBU. What's Oklahoma?" I lived in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. And so she drove me out one spring break. I think it was my senior year, to come check out the campus. I liked OBU. They accepted me. They were dumb. And it's a long chain of events, but I got to Oklahoma, and then I was here. I lived in the dorm, and then I was like, school sucks. This is dumb. So I started becoming an entrepreneur. I started DJing, started throwing parties, started making money. Then myself and two guys, we moved into a $350 bedroom in the hood house. And I remember the landlord, and remember I was suppressed, uneducated. I only thought millionaire. I hated rich people. That was the big thing. People, man, I literally hated rich people. And when this landlord was like, I'm going to sell this house someday for $35,000. Now this is by the drive-by city area. I mean, this is hood rat.
Right.
And I was like, man, I can own a house. 135 houses later.
Wow.
I never knew that I would be able to live the dream that I'm living. So that was cool. That was a seed. And I think that was in 1997 is when I lived there. And then 2 years later, some punk rockers that I was in a band, I was managing some bands and, just hustling, trying to make money. And these kids gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad. They were touring around the country and they never worried about money. And I was like, that's bizarre because they owned a duplex. They were 18 years old. Wow. And one side paid for their whole living expenses for their mortgage. And I didn't even know what a duplex was. Like I didn't know it was two people living under one roof because I didn't understand. And then one day this guy, Cale and Justin Griman, and never forget where you came from. To this day, I bless them, and I can get into that later. But they gave me the book, and it's like the first book I ever read outside of mandatory school, college. I was overweight, on the edge of divorce. I was laying on the couch, going nowhere, DJing on the weekends because I made enough money to survive. I needed like $800 to $1,000 a month to live. Mm-hmm. And I read that book and it blew my effing mind. First of all, I learned that you can be rich. It's not a social status. Like, oh, okay. I could be rich. It's possible. Okay. So that was a seed. And then it said, to be rich, you got to buy assets. Okay. And assets make you money. Well, I like to make money, no doubt. And so then I'm not playing. I sold my microwave, my TV, and I just started buying assets. I saw a sign it was a sign next door to the rent house I was renting. It had an auction. And I looked at the auction was that night. I looked on the website. There were 6 houses or 12 houses for sale. I drove by one of the houses. Now I couldn't get in. And this is risk. I walked around the house and I was like, okay. So then I went to the auction and 3 houses before that were like going for 10 or 12,000. And I'm like, dude, you can buy a car,
right?
And you could live live in a house. So I was like, so I raised my hand. And I won this effing house, 620. It's in my book. Like, that was one thing about my book. It pissed me off. I read a bunch of real estate books. No one puts the addresses. Right. No one says that I'm a millionaire. I own 135. Well, look on the county. You can find my house. It's like, I'm not trying to hide. I get sued and stuff. That's cool. Sue me, whatever. But the deal is, 620 Northwest 31st. It went for $14,500, and I had no money in my bank account. But I was like, you could buy a car. I thought it was easy. Like, I thought you like a car, you could just go fill out an application. So I wrote a hot check for $700. Back then it was 5%. I wrote a check for like $700 and something dollars. And I had like a couple $100 in there. So then I went and pawned. It was a Friday was the auction, or Thursday or Friday. I knew I had over the weekend to get the money in there. Not like today where it funds that night. So I went and pawned my gold chain that I bought in the 80s when I worked at McDonald's. And I remember buying that gold chain with the freaking eagle on it that I paid $100 when I worked for $3.35 an hour when I was like 16.
Wow.
I pawned that gold necklace and I sold a bunch of crap and I barely made the check cleared.
Awesome.
So I was like, okay, great. Now I got to come up with 14 grand or 13,700 or something. So I was like, every bank shot me down. What's a DJ? You have no job. You have no tax return. Well, I was in college, and but I was like, I want to be rich. And I'm like, and of course I was so ignorant. Now keep in mind, I was super ignorant. Like I didn't know. And I think that's the thing. My success is like, this credibility kid, I'm just doing it. Like, I don't know what's right or wrong. I mean, now I Google stuff up. Now I study and I read, but so then I got no. And I called my mom and she lived in California. My mom lived in a freaking mobile trailer park in Concord, California. She bought for 16. That was worth 50 at this time. I helped her sell it, which is cool. And she called Bank of America. She's like, hey, I want to buy this house in Oklahoma. And they laughed at her on the phone. You want a $14,000 loan? They wrote my mom that loan.
Wow.
And so I couldn't believe it. And that was my first. Now, there's other houses I bought since then. And then I did it again. My mom was getting pissed because I was like, I went to another auction and I raised my hand again. It was a $17,000 or $24,000 house. And I bought that house. And then my mom was like, no. And then I started buying owner finances. And then that was in 1999.
That's awesome.
And I would never know. Now, yeah, I had diarrhea. Yeah, you read my book, but it's not like, hey, I'm a millionaire. Hey, buy my course. Right. No, I love it when people really read it because no one I didn't realize I wrote the book. Remember, I wrote the book for the credibility, but I wrote the book too because I love to read. But people don't read. I was like, I should have never wrote a book. But when people do read it, they're like, man, I feel sad for you. Like, I can't believe that you did that you got bent over so many times. And I'm like, yeah, but I have no regret because I think it just accelerated my success. I mean, you got to think for the first 1999 to 2009, that 10 years part-time, I became a millionaire. And then from probably 2009 to 2012, in 3 years, I became a multi-millionaire.
Wow.
And because, the first 10 years, I was just fumbling along part-time, had a real job. Well, not a real job, but I mean, I DJ'd and hustled. But then some key books, and you need to read Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. So Rich Dad Poor Dad made me a millionaire, and I love the guy. And, people scrutinize Kiyosaki. I'm like, it's so funny. I love it when I used to buy cases of that book, and no one would read it. People would read it and say, that guy wrote the book to make money, and then a few of us would be wealthy. And then people were like, how do you become a multimillionaire? I'm like, read this book. This is like Rich Dad Poor Dad Part 2, Millionaire Fastlane. And I just do what the damn book says. This is not like, I just did it. I don't know. Again, remember, I came from nothing. So what's the worst thing to this day, did you hear my podcast on fear?
Yes.
Did you listen?
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm being serious. Like, look, I love this new one. I thought, this is random. This shit's random. So when I was like, what's the worst thing? I go bankrupt? Okay. Right on. Am I going to go to jail? No. They shut me down. They just took everything. IRS said, F you, Van Kallenberg. Okay. I'm still going to be a father. I can go on a constructions job. I can go paint. I can GC. I can make money flipping contracts. I can wholesale. They can't stop me from being successful. Only you can.
Right. Sure. No,
and
I love it.
And that's where
you started from nothing and brought it up to 135
Oh, yeah, and I was homeless
houses.
too. Yeah, I remember when I started this thing. So back in 1995, I went to Oklahoma in 1992. In 1994, 95, I was homeless. I was supposed to go in the military. I don't know if I talked about this in the book, but I enrolled, and I took the job that had the biggest paycheck. It was EMT, and I hate blood. And I passed this ASVAB, and it's like they were going to give me a $5,000 signing bonus if I was an EMT. So I took that dumb job. But then I went to the military, and then I went to California to ship out, and they're like, no, you can't do it. You got to go back to Oklahoma. Well, I spent all my money. So I took a bus back to Oklahoma on the Greyhound, And they're like, well, your paperwork's messed up. I'm like, fellas, look, dude, like I've got to ship or I got to go back to school or get a job. And so I actually never made it to the military, and I was living on this dude's couch. And I was like literally homeless in 1995. And then, so 1997, I think those, but 1999 was when I bought my first house. So 1998, 97, it is when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I just started doing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talked about the first couple deals, starting from nothing, getting your mom to get the loans for you to buy these first couple houses from auction, which you're right. That's high risk stuff. I mean, you're walking around these properties, maybe you can see them through the windows, but you have no idea what the interior condition is, unless maybe you can see something through those windows. But typically you have no idea if there's mechanicals and, plumbing, electric, what else needs to be done inside the house. Give me some of those stories. I mean, how did you get to 135 houses or 135? Is it units or houses?
Units. I mean, I have 100. I have an apartment building, but basically, that was real riskful. I wouldn't do that today. And actually, they had an open house, but I was so. I mean, hot and horny is my new word. I don't know why. I didn't need to stop selling. Some girl's going to email me and slap me, but I was so hungry that I just did it. I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? And of course, I just didn't care. $14,000. Okay, how much money in student loan? I mean, I feel sorry for students that have. I'm coaching a kid right now. He's got $30,000 in student debt. He can't, and that's cheap. He can't pay it back. His job. He makes $50,000 a year. He nets $2,600 a month. He can't pay back his $30,000.
Wow.
I mean, he can, $5 a month for 50 years.
Right.
But the point is, people say I'm riskful. It's calculated. There is no risk here. Like, okay, if it burns down, okay, I have insurance.
Right.
I read that in the book.
Yep.
If I'm going to live in it. And so I lived in that property for 2-3 years. I actually tiled it myself. I worked on it myself. Now, it could have had a bad sewer line. I probably couldn't. It didn't have central heat and air. I had to beg for that money from my father-in-law of my first wife. I made him feel like a loser. I can't believe, it was sad. And I'm confessing that. I had to do the impossible. I had to beg for money at that time, which I totally regret that now, but I just started doing it. The main thing that got me in was I met this guy, this super successful investor that is still a friend of mine today. He was selling owner finance, $2,000 down and 10% interest, which I bought 5 houses from him in the beginning, which I just DJ'd. I made about $300 to $500 a gig, and I paid myself $100. So every 20 gigs, I just went and bought a house. So I had a little piece of paper on the wall. Okay, I can't wait to make $2,000, because when I make $2,000, I'm going to call Scott up and say, hey, Scott, my mentor guy at the time. Of course, he was hustling me. He was selling me POSs. I bought a house for real. I bought a house that had the sewer line, had concrete in it from the past person that he took it back from.
That's terrible.
But that's okay. I lost $10,000, but where am I at today?
Right.
Now, I see people, they lose money and they get out of the game. I met a kid the other day that got out, and it just broke my heart. Yes, there's several times that I wanted to quit. There was one time I had 14 houses. Not units, 14. I remember this number. And when I met my wife, my real wife, at 7 units, 7 houses, I wanted to quit. I wanted to give it to the church. I wanted to, be a missionary, because this was too hard. I'm working for free, but man, I'm so glad that I didn't quit.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that I'm where I am today. And that you're even interviewing me, which is even more psycho, that we're even friends. I met you at some deal session. I thought that too. When Brad Grayson called me, he said, hey, bro, you need to come to this deal. He was like, you have to have done 50 transactions. Well, 50 deals. I'm like, well, okay. Because Brad has like 300 units. He doesn't tell anybody.
Right.
But I know, Brad, I know you have 300. And
I think he said it during the advanced. It was the advanced deal makers session, is what it's called. Now that you brought it up again, I forgot the actual term of that little private networking meeting. But I thought he said he brought that number out there. I'm pretty sure, because I was like, whoa! I was like, who is this guy? How did he do that?
That dude Brad is legit. Have you not seen him speak?
Not unlike him as the main speaker. No, just in that room. That's the only time I ever met him.
He speaks every year for the Mr. Landlord Conference,
Sure.
and he's just he's like me, but just older. He's just legit. Like, he's not trying to make money off this deal. He just likes to help people. You need to connect with him.
Yeah, I know Eddie's actually. Eddie talks to him quite a bit.
He likes me. I don't know why. Again, I feel the same way. When I met him 7 years ago or 5 years ago, I was like, wow, well, you're so big, you won't even tell me your number. You know, I'm like, I don't care no more. Like, some people will attack me and try to take me down because they're jealous. Some people I will inspire. And I'm not throwing it out there. I don't put it on Facebook. Well, I guess it's on my webpage, but it's not on my Facebook page. You know, I'm humbled. I want to tell people that you can do it too. There's no difference between me and you. It's just because I have nothing to lose. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Back to where you were.
Yeah, I regret. You know,
Yeah.
and I read this from somewhere, or maybe Zig Ziglar or Brian Tracy. I don't want to be 50 years old, and I'm 43 coming up in September. I don't want to be 50 and say I had regrets. And now I don't want to be that 60-year-old guy. Like, I tutor kids on Thursdays, and this 80-year-old lady tutors, and she just got back from Cancun. And I was like, this chick can barely effing walk. And I'm like, wow, I want to go to Cancun now. I don't want to wait. I want to live now. I want to live my life now. And so for that to happen, for me to live the lifestyle that I want, I have to grind it out. I have to call people. I have to do interviews that that I'm not yielding. But one day, I know you've done a deal with a private and now I'm fascinated, and I'm like,
Sure.
I'm going to interview you.
Okay.
And I think that's just how, people, the number one question I got a lot when I was on tour, when I toured with a lot of famous bands, and it doesn't matter their names.
I'm kind of curious though.
Okay. Well, people ask me this all the time, but back then, you ever heard of a band called POD?
Yeah.
Payable on Death? They're like a hardcore band.
Yeah.
Okay. I was their road manager right when they got assigned to Atlantic.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Right when they were blowing up. They're platinum.
Mm-hmm.
And I would we would travel. We would play for thousands of people. We would pay at bars for 50 people. The one thing I learned from them was the most incredible thing. One, that they poured their heart out every time they played. We'd be at a bar and I was the road manager, and I would be beating up the owner, like, "Where's our $1,000, fag? You know, where's your money?"
Right.
You know, and they would play for 10 people and be out of control, and the same intensity. I learned that from them, and I learned every time I landed somewhere, people asked me, "How did you become their road manager?" Seriously, I probably answered that question more in my whole life. And I always said the same thing. I just made a phone call. This is how I got on tour with them. I was a promoter. I was driving back from California one day, and I was like, what's my dream? What do I want to do? This is before real estate. I want to be I love music. I want to be a promoter. I want to make money. I want to be a promoter. So I'm going to call what's my favorite band? My favorite band back then was called The Prayer Chain. They were from Concord, California. They were on a record label called 5 Minute Walk Records, small indie label out of Concord. So I call the owner answers. Hey, I'm a college student and I have access to a building in Oklahoma, and I would like to bring this band in. And they're like, no, they're on tour in Europe.
Right.
But I have another band called this. And so I hosted a concert at the local little college.
Awesome.
So from a phone call of it, I want to do my dream, I call the record label. He throws me some ghetto band. Well, after that ghetto band, I become a promoter. Now, I do it all wrong, but then all of a sudden, all these bands start wanting to play for me. And because I give them pizza and I pay them. Like, I take the $5 at the door and I give them the money.
That is awesome.
Wow. Real simple concept.
Right.
And they're like, you're so cool. Won't you go on tour with us? Okay. And so I started going tour with random bands. And then I started then I started saving my money, and I started buying a sound system. Then my roommate was an engineer. And then I was like, hey, you want to go on tour? So then I call the company in Seattle that just signed POD as their booking agent. And they were looking for sound. And they were like, well, I was dumb. I underbidded it. I was like, X amount of money per show, which was a fool. And that's how I got to ride with POD. They liked me so much. They're like, would you mind going on tour with me? We'll pay you X amount of money. But you're a hard ass. You'll punk people. And that's what we need, because we just want to play. We want to tell people about Jesus, and we want to play. I was like, no problem.
That is a crazy story.
But that's how it is. Like, that's the freaking truth. I mean, it's like people like, how do you become a millionaire? Well, I read these 2 books. Like, well, I don't want to read. Okay, I called. And so Brad Grayson called me and said, hey, he's a friend. You should come to Ohio. Why? There's this cool thing. He said the conference is okay, but there's this one thing that we meet the day before is worth every penny. Mm-hmm. And my other friend goes. And so I was like, I'll go. And here I am with you.
Yep. Yeah, that was.
And hopefully your podcast will be so huge. And then you'll have commercials. People are going to pay you, monetize it.
Right.
And
sponsorships.
Then I'm going to beat you up. I'm like, look, dude, remember I was there? I was number 3.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You're number 3 on the video. This is episode 15, though. Just so
yeah.
See, I'm a little more. I got it going on a little bit.
So I'm 15.
You are.
I'm like, look, can I get half prize?
Right.
I'm trying to promote my new book. I'm writing a book right now.
Awesome.
So I have like 2 in the pipeline, but I have one that I'm going to release. So it's called The 100 Savvy Secrets of the Real Estate Investor.
Awesome.
And I'm spilling the beans. Now you'll hear a lot of them on the podcast but I'm like 100 things that I effing do to get to like this deal. Like I don't know if that will be one of them, but like sure. I seriously, like here's one of them I need to write out. Like the title company works for me for free. Like for real. People call me all the time. How do you do title checks? I'm like, I just call a title company. Well, that's $75. Well, the thing that I did is like I had a closing and the gal freaking just helped me out so many times. I bought her an RC helicopter. I freaking drop shipped that mess to her office.
The title company lady.
The chick that my closer, my escrow girl.
Nice.
I mean, I just drop shipped her a helicopter.
Okay.
I mean, she's a 60-year-old chick. Now, she had a weird like watch on one day, had a skull on it. And I was like, hey, girl.
Rock on.
Yeah, I'm like, what's up with this skull? She's like, my niece gave me this. And I was like, okay. Because I try to take her to lunch. She goes, no. I try to, I don't want to bring her cookies because that's like, she might be chubby. So I dropped her a helicopter. I'm telling you, she'll never forget me. And when I call her and say, hey, is there a lien on this property? Or, hey, can you find out what mortgage this is from? Or, hey, I have a septic line. I have a septic problem on this property, and it's not on my property. How do I get this? The lawyer's saying I have to own the property. How do I get that done? She's like, you got to get this, and an easement. You got to get them to sign. And she did it for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I mean, I owe her. And
Absolutely.
So that's how you do it. You got to go with your spirit. Like, you're like, hey, I'm stupid busy. I'm doing, but I'm like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You just don't know. You just have to, with my gut. I know you're not sketchy. I know you pay your $5 to buy my little audio. I mean, you're like the first one that bought the audio. I'm like, this guy, he's like, you're like record it. I'm like,
yeah,
no one wants this shit. I'll buy it. Someone else ordered it the other day. I was like, who is this guy?
That's awesome.
I mean, I've never intended to make money off of this situation, but
well, tell everyone what you got going on, because we talked about the book. Now we talked about a couple different books. I know we can get all your stuff on Amazon, right?
Yeah, but you can go to The Savvy Landlord. It's The Savvy Landlord, or you can go to my website, savvylandlord.me, or thesavvylandlordbook.com.
Okay. And that's where you can get all the stuff you've written. And then on the audio side, what Steven's talking about is he hosts, I believe it's monthly, but the Landlord Lunch.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, our RIAs here in Oklahoma City are competitive, which is really bizarre. And like, there's a RIA that's been around for about 15 years, and then that was really successful. That was the RIA that I actually went to 12 or 13 years ago, and it was amazing. It had a bunch of legitimate investors willing to help young investors. Well, that RIA has had some issues where they sold the RIA to somebody, and then it broke up, and now it's just they're always selling a $6,000 coaching program.
Right.
And it's probably viable. I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't want. I mean, they hate me anyway. They hate me. They effing hate me. So I'm like, okay, because I'm like legit, and I'm like, look, dude, nobody has $6,000. That's why they're here. I mean, like, how do you get $6,000? You learn a wholesale. You flip a deal. You know. Anyway, so during that process, someone started another group, which is a really good group that I love, and and I just wanted to give back, promote my stuff, and if you can get off of lunch, you're serious, and it's free. So once a month, the third Wednesday, it's cool. It's been organic. Now we have about 40-something people that show up. Some people take off their job, and they come, and it's just a collaborative effort. I just throw out a topic, and there'll be people in the room that are like way more smarter than me. Like, did you hear the one on the IRA? Did you download that one yet?
No, that's the new one, right?
Yeah, like
no, not yet.
There's this, of course, I don't know anything about IRAs. So, but these are the subject these investors want to talk about.
Right.
And so I, read a few things, studied some stuff, and I mean, I learned so much that day. I make it seem like I know what I'm talking about, but I really don't. And I just keep posing questions. Sure. And so it's just a collaborative effort. It's just a room full of investors and landlords, and we just talk about stuff. And you're the one that said you should record it. And I'm like, okay.
This dude's crazy, but okay.
Yeah, I was like, I got the recorder, so I just have to hit record, and it's raw. And if you listen to the second one, I actually put a intro on there.
Yeah.
Because the first one, I just uploaded it.
Yeah, it had all like the background, just people like forks and knives clicking in the background, and then you guys just kind of chatting off to the side, and it's picking up all the noise. That's cool, man. I mean, I felt like I was in the room. I listened to the whole thing. I loved it.
Yeah. I think you'll like the IRA one. Like, right, I don't know. I'd be curious.
I'm going to check it out. It out.
I mean, some people, they loved it. Like, it was weird because the room was like standing room only, and it was such a hot subject, money, private money, and I'm just fascinated why people don't talk about it so much. Like, I feel like I'm getting consumed by it. Mm-hmm. Like, but it's an easy way to get into real estate. I mean, I don't know. So that's that. I have a couple courses out, virtual assistants course called Outsource to Wealth, which actually I had 10 people buy it, or 15. No, I had 15 people buy it when I spoke, and I have like local people buy it, and they've actually went through it. And I talked to a kid the other day, and I have a realtor that went through it, and he just raised $2 million, and he says his VA has given him freedom. And you use VAs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did that course. I did a course on technology, which is pretty cool. And then that's pretty much it. And then I've written a few books, and then I don't know what I'm doing. I know for sure that I don't want to charge people $10,000.
Right.
I do some coaching. It's real casual. It's real down and dirty. Like, I take a few students that really want to do it, that really want to be. I got kids that have no money. I mean, they're broke. I mean, and I'm going to make them a millionaire. I'm like, bro, if you hang on, because the thing is, it's so simple. Like, people are like, how'd you get on POD? I called this booking agent, and I said this, and I did this. Like, just say that. Like, it's just so funny. There's a friend of mine that he raised $500,000 the other day. I said, call the bank and say this, and he didn't believe me, and he did it in Houston. And then he did it again in Oklahoma City. He lives in Houston, and he just raised $500,000 from one local bank.
Wow.
I mean, like, just say these things. And all the knowledge is out there. Like, Savvy Landlord, there's nothing I'm new. Like, I'm stealing everybody's other material. I mean, I'm like, there's nothing out there. But the success is no one wants to do it. That's the problem.
Sure.
And I wish, so I don't know where this is going. I mean, I know. Oh, I went to the Eric Thomas conference, and he said, you know, because I was actually going to shut Savvy down. I know. You know how much money I have in this thing? I have about 40 G's. I literally writing all the books. Remember, I hire someone $50 an hour to hold my hand because you know I'm ghetto. So when I say things like GAY, you know, he's got to come up with a better way to say that. You know, you got to imagine working for me. It's got to be a nightmare. You know, and he bills me.
Sure.
You know,
I bet he does.
He's living large. You know, I got about 30 to 40 in it. I lost count after 20. And then I seriously was about to give this deal up again. I was like, of course, you encourage me. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I like your stuff. But then when I went to Eric Thomas and he went just exactly the same question, he went in levels. You got to go this level to this level to this level to this level. And he's like, you had to hold on for 10 years. And so when he said 10 years, you become a master. When I look at my DJ business, it was 10 years when it was viable. When on my bridal business, when I sold that, it was 10 years. My real estate, my DJ business, when I became a millionaire 10 years into real estate, part-time. My bridal business, after the 10-year mark, I sold it for $400,000. My DJ business, I held on to it for 20 years like a dummy. And all this is because of the Millionaire Fast Lane. Because I read that book, it said, get out of businesses that are low barrier of entry. And when I realized it's 10 years. So I've only been 4 years on Savvy. Right. So I told my wife when I got back, I was like, look, we got 6 more years with this Savvy BS. And and by then, if it's not, coaching kids and adults is rewarding. But, it takes a lot of time. I mean, it's not, I always look at it, and my mentors are like, Stephen, every time you write one of these books, how much time do you have in it? I'm like 9 months. How much money do you have in it? Oh, $5,000, $10,000. I'm talking about if I really sat down and analyzed the artwork and the distribution, the printing, and the guy that does my voice. He's like, if you just spent that kind of time buying real estate, you'd probably be,
double the amount of units, yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at SavvyRadioShow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook and always be buying assets.